Day 1 of reading. Here we go. Yay. Today we are going to continue what we left off on 2 weeks ago now with our Unit 7, Developing a Nation. So what you will need today in front of you is this book if you have it. If you don't, pause this, go to benchmark either through Symbaloo or the link in Google Classroom under distance learning. Pull up Developing a Nation, the reader. The second thing you will need is the Unit 7 reading packet. We will be on the first page. You will need a pencil, obviously, and a highlighter. So, let's get to it. So our goals for the day are these. Read to identify and annotate key details. Use key details to determine a main idea. And we are going to take this and turn it into a informational summary, which, even though it's been 2 weeks, I'm sure you guys remember. So the parts of an informational summary. 1, main idea, right? 2, 3 to 4 key details that support your main idea. Third part of an informational summary, making a connection to your life. We make that connection so that we're able to comprehend the information more because it's more meaningful to us, and so it'll stick in our brain. Having a connection makes things click better. And then finally, you need to put it in your own words. You can't copy word for word, and for one, it won't make the most sense. For two, that doesn't help you comprehend any better. Actually, putting it in your own words will help you. So we are going to use these objectives with... Okay, we're back. So here is our assignment. Key details and ideas, like I said. You're going to read paragraphs 1 through 8. We'll do it together. Underline the key details in each paragraph. And this is a chronological text. Remember, a chronological text goes first, second, third. It's events in order. And the one main thing we can use to figure out what events are happening in order is if there's dates. So there's years, there's time periods. That will help us stay. So I'm going to look for those. So make a chronological list of the most important details, paragraphs 1 through 8, that time order. Determine the main idea. Create our summary, stating the main idea, 3 to 4 key details, and a personal connection, all in your own words. And then finish reading the story if you have time. You don't need to. But you can. It's kind of interesting, actually. So, we'll have both of these things going at the same time. Building the Transcontinental Railroad starts on page 12. Like I think I said it before. Maybe I didn't. But here we go. I'm looking for those dates. And this is by Andrea Matthews. So in 1830, the first railroad in the United States opened in Baltimore. And it had just 21 kilometers or 13 miles of track. Other railroad lines were built, mostly in the Northeast. Soon the East Coast was crisscrossed with train tracks connecting cities. Well, I do see a date in here, 1830, and it says the first railroad was built. That's probably pretty important, right? So I'm going to highlight that. I probably don't need the rest of this. I didn't mean to highlight it. Don't you highlight this. Pretend it's not there. Okay. So we're going to keep going. By the 1850s, railroads were changing cities. For example, in 1850, Chicago had 30,000 people on one railroad. By 1856, the city had 10 railroads, and by 1860, its population had tripled due to the rail system. The railroads affected everyday life and how people did business. Now, this gives me dates in here, but it's just giving me like a quick overview of what happened with the railroad. It's not really a key detail. It's telling me everything that happened in the 1850s. I'm guessing the next paragraphs are going to break it down even more. So I'm not going to highlight that. Anything in there, I think that's more of an overview and not quite what I'm looking for in a key detail of what was actually happening year by year with the railroad. So I'm going to keep going. Farmers shipped corn and wheat through Chicago by rail. Factories were built, and their products were shipped to customers via the railroad. Hotels sprang up for visiting business travelers. New housing was built for the additional workers. Suburbs grew up around areas where people used the railroads to commute to work. So these paragraphs are going together. So as the railroads are popping up, populations tripling, right? cities are starting to boom, businesses are coming up, and now it's just telling me like what exactly is happening. Oh, down here, if you want to look, there's a nice little blurb about the first American steam locomotive, called the Tom Thumb, traveled at the speed of just 18 miles per hour. Not even as fast as Usain Bolt. Not even close, actually. Anyway, a few dreamers wanted to expand the railroad to the lightly settled West, but there was little demand. For it. Then gold was discovered in California in 1848. Word spread and people rushed to look for gold. They found a place that had great weather and fine soil. Soon other people moved there to farm or start businesses. Well, I think this is pretty important because there was no reason to go to California before this until they discovered gold. There's gold in them there hills, and everybody ran to California, right? The big gold rush. So that might be an important detail, a key detail that I'm going to underline, because it's one of the reasons railroads were brought over into California. Travelers crossed the plains in covered wagons or sailed around South America to reach California. Either way, the trip took 4 months or more. People wanted a better way to travel to the west. Also, farmers and business owners in the west needed a faster way to ship their goods east. Leaders began to talk about building a transcontinental railroad. Suddenly, the dreamers' idea of joining the eastern and western coasts together began to make sense. So, same thing. This paragraph is supporting this paragraph, right? It's talking about how people went to California for gold, then they settled there for other reasons. And then this is giving the reasons and how people got to California before there was a railroad. There's a nice little quote. You can read this, but I'm not going to because I want to get this mini lesson done in a short amount of time. A nice little map here. I would take a look at it if I was you. If I had some extra time. Here's us. Up here, right? Here's Glendon. It's funny, Glendon was one of the big towns back then. Brainerd. Fargo's there, St. Cloud. Okay. Building a railroad across the country was a huge project. It would require money, a team of engineers, armies of workers, and a leader. Theodore Judah was a young engineer who had built railroads in the East. He believed that a transcontinental railroad should be built. Just a quick thing, remember transcontinental. Continental is our continent, so North America. Trans is going across. So he wants to build a railroad across the United States. Judah went to Washington, D.C. to ask for the government for land and money. He convinced President Abraham Lincoln to sign the Pacific Railroad Act of 1862. That seems like another important date. So President Abraham Lincoln signed the Pacific Railroad Act of 1862. This plan set up 2 railroad companies, and that's kind of important to me anyway. The Central Pacific Railroad Company would begin in California, laying track east. The Union Pacific Railroad Company would start at the Missouri River, laying track west, and they would meet somewhere in the middle. So one's starting here, one's starting over here, and they're building towards each other. So that's an important date. Keep that one. And this is kind of a big thing. They're going across the country. So I'm going to I kind of think this whole thing, if I put it in my own words, is going to be a key detail. Because this act created this. They kind of all go together. Sorry. Each company would receive 6,400, later doubled to 12,800 acres of land and $48,000 in government bonds for each mile of track built. The company that got the farthest would make the most money. The land and money proved a good incentive for each company to do its best to win. The New Pacific seemed to have an easier job. It was building across flatland. The Central Pacific had to run track to the Sierra Nevada mountain. Either way, the race was on. And that's where we're going to stop. This isn't really giving you more key details about dates, so I'm not going to do anything with this paragraph, but it does provide supporting details about what was happening with the Central Pacific Railroad Company and the Union Pacific Railroad Company and what they were dealing with as they built across the United States. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go back and we are going to take and write our summary. So we'll look at what we, and figure out our main idea. So thinking to yourself, what do you think the main idea could be? This whole thing talked about transcontinental railroad, right? And that's even in the title. So I'm thinking my main idea might maybe something like the transcontinental railroad was built over several decades, was going 1830 to 1862 and beyond that, to meet people's needs. So that's all what I'm going to show. So you can do that too if you want. So yes, whoop. I'm going to pause this and grab the phone and we're back. Well, back to this. Okay, the Transcontinental Railroad was built over several, let's say decades, you could say years, whatever you like, several decades to meet the needs of, I'll say, the, yes, you could say of the people, people in the United States. So now I need to back this up with key details of how it progressed over those several years. So our first key detail that we underlined or highlighted was in 1830, the first railroad in the United States opened in Baltimore. So I'm going to start there. So first, and that doesn't sound right. Don't write first. 1830, the first railroad was opened in Baltimore. And if you were not sure, Baltimore is. Okay, so that's my first one. The good thing about videos is if you need time to write this down, you can pause it now. But I'm going to keep going. So my second detail, gold was discovered in California in 1848. And that was important because it inspired people to travel west, right? So I'm going to say then, or next, you can choose. In 1848, gold was discovered in California. This inspired people, actually I'm going to shorten up even more, inspiring people to travel west. Pause that there if you need to finish writing. Keep going. So then our last thing, in 1862, President Abraham Lincoln signed the Pacific Railroad Act, and they set up those two railroad companies, the Central Pacific Railroad and the Union Pacific Railroad, where they would complete the track for the Transcontinental Railroad. So I'm going to try to summarize that. So now I might say now. Then, and next, in 1862, President Lincoln signed Pacific Railroad Act, right? Should be capital, the name of the term. Railroad Act. Um, Pacific Railroad Act. Creating Central Pacific Railroad and the Union Pacific Railroad. Those railroads, this is getting long, would compete to finish the Transcontinental Railroad. Okay, so you have writer's cramp. Shake your hand out when you're done with that. Now, the last thing to make a summary is your personal connection. And obviously, your personal connection and mine are going to be different. My personal connection is, I'm not even going to write it down because you're a writer's down, but I grew up in a railroad town. The town was pretty much created around the railroad, and it's still a big part of the industry today. So I understand how towns would crop up along the route of the railway, um, and how that would bring people in, especially before there was a lot of cars and other types of transportation. So that's my personal connection. So you should have now this fairly long summary, but it's pretty detailed. It gives us the chronological order. I've written a personal connection. It could be about how you've ridden the train, what you know about railroads, maybe some other reasons that towns pop up, places, like suburbs of cities, things like that. And that should be your summary. Should be good there. Hey, so every day, usually, unless there's a test, we're going to have IXLs to work on, 2 for reading, just like math. You need to get them done to 80%. That's how I know you're completing the work. The stuff in your packet is great. I'm not going to collect that again. I really want you to do that because that's the only way you're going to be a better reader. But this is the stuff I'll be looking at. So we're going to do our first IXLs today, and they are JJ 9, 10, and 11. It's on relative pronouns. Just want to show, so you have to scroll way down to get to the J's. 9, 10, 11. So a relative pronoun is something used to link to describe a noun. We'll talk a little bit about it. So like this sentence, let's learn with an example. And so it says, my aunt, who is always going on new adventures, recently visited Australia. So a relative pronoun introduces the dependent or relative clause that describes a noun or pronoun. So my aunt, who is always going on new adventures, recently visited Australia. So it's saying, this part right here, who is always going on new adventures, that's just a little added bonus. I don't need to know that to know your aunt went to Australia. So this is a dependent clause right here. It's giving some extra information. I could just say my aunt recently visited Australia. That makes total sense. But when I say my aunt, who's always going on new adventures, recently visited Australia, I'm giving you a little more detail so you can kind of picture my aunt better in your head, right? So the way it starts is with who. Who is a relative pronoun. Who, it's describing my aunt. So I could say my aunt, she's always going on new adventures, but I can put who there. So these are the ones that you usually use for relative pronouns. Who, I'm not doing well with that. Who, whom, whose, which, and that. So the woman who lives next door grows tomatoes in her garden. Like I could take out who lives next door and it still makes sense. The woman grows tomatoes in her garden. So who lives next door is a dependent clause. Peter, whom you met yesterday, has 4 younger brothers. I could just say Peter has 4 younger brothers. But I'm giving you more details by saying whom. Emily, whose hair is quite long, likes wearing braids. Okay, I could just say Emily likes wearing braids, but I'm giving you more detail by saying whose hair is quite long. I just read Janet's new book, which came out last month. I could just say I just read Janet's new book. But by saying which came out last month, I'm giving you some more detail there. This is the dress that I wore to my uncle's wedding. Okay? I could say this is the dress. Here it is. But now I'm telling you more about it. So, let's go back to the practice. Kendall married a person whom she trusts and respects. Now remember, these are the main relative pronouns. Who, whom, whose, which, that. I do not need your help, Randy Jackson. Okay. Or you, Windows Antivirus. So, Kendall married a person she trusts and respects. Whom she trusts and respects. So, whom would be a relative pronoun. I'll hold these up for a little bit too. I'm excited to see the acrobats who are supposed to be wonderful. So who, right? So the main thing on these is you're looking for who, whom, whose, which, and that. Conan's first book, which is selling really well, is about overpopulation. Which? So I could just say Conan's first book is about overpopulation. But if I'm saying which is selling well, I'm giving you some more detail. Okay, that's JJ9. Now we're going to go to JJ10. Which is... this stuff has to stop popping up. Why? Anyway, we'll just ignore that. So, use relative pronouns who and whom. This is a little complicated sometimes. It's trying to decide which one makes sense. Who or whom. Mr. Kirk, who we've known or whom we've known for years, became my father's business partner. So let's learn with an example again. Who and whom give information about people. To figure out whether to use who or whom, restate the dependent clause with a personal pronoun. If it has he, she, or they, use who. If it's him, her, or them, use whom. Okay, let's try that. So, Mr. Kirk, blank we've known for years, just became my father's business partner. Would I say he we've known for years or him we've known for years? Yeah, him we've known for years sounds better. So instead of saying who we've known for years, I'm going to say whom we've known for years. Megan, blank, you must meet, is an especially interesting person. Would I say Megan, she you must meet, or her you must meet? Her you must meet, right? So I'm going to say whom again. Reggie was one of many soldiers, blank, enlisted that month. Would I say Reggie was one of many soldiers, he enlisted that month, or him enlisted that month? He, right? So I would say who there. So if you're saying he, she, they, it's who. If you're saying him, her, them, it's whom. So let's go back to the next one. Let's go back to the other one. JJ 11. This one's going to be the same thing, whom and whose, but you're also going to use which and that. Let's learn from an example again. So we talked about who and whom already. That gives necessary information about things. Necessary information narrows down what you're talking about and is not set off by commas. So we walk to a park that has a tire swing. Which adds unnecessary information about things. This extra information does not narrow down what you're talking about. It always has a comma. So you're looking, that doesn't have a comma, which has a comma, and it's unnecessary. We walk to a park. That has a tire swing. This one is necessary because there's lots of parks, but I'm going to one with a tire swing. This one, we walk to Glendale Park, which has a tire swing. Well, I already know the park. It's Glendale Park. This will just give me extra information. I don't need this. This one I do. This is like if I went, Dot was hanging out with somebody. I'm like, hey, what park are you at? And they're like, oh, we're at the one that has a tire swing. I'm like, oh yeah, I know that one is. This one, if they already said we're at Glendale Park, well, I already know what park it is. I don't need to know that it has a tire swing. The relative pronoun whose shows possession. So whose is her, it's her hair. If you're saying her hair is quite long. Okay, so let's try a few of those. And this might take a while to get. That's okay. It's practice. So don't worry. Watch out for dangerous snakes. Blank may be hidden by the tall grass. So there's no comma here. So I'm guessing it's going to be that. It's kind of important to not step on a snake. It might be necessary. Yeah. Rebecca is building a house. Blank Lisa design. Once again, there's no comma. If there's a comma, it's going to be a whose. But there's not one. Or it's going to be a which, I'm sorry. There's not one, so I'm going to say that. Marble statue, blank I saw at the museum, is truly breathtaking. Once again, there's no comma, so kind of default, that. The youngest U.S. president was Theodore Roosevelt. Blank was 42. This is a person, so I'm going to use a who or a whom. So would I say the youngest U.S. president was Theodore Roosevelt? He was 42 or him was 42? I'd say he, so this is going to be a who. On Thanksgiving, we always eat turkey. There's a comma here. It's talking about a thing, so it's going to be which or that. So since there's a comma, it can't be that. This is unnecessary information. So it's going to be which I can't stand. So you're going to keep going through those like that. If you have any questions, get a hold of me. This one's a little more complicated, I know, but I have faith in you that you will figure it out. And it doesn't have to be done today, those 3. We're going to actually work on them today, tomorrow, and the next day. So if you bang them out right now, get through them all, great. If you don't freak out about it. You'll have lots of time, okay? Take your time. Okay? See you tomorrow.